Okay, hey everybody. We were doing fractions with adding and subtracting yesterday, and for number 1 and 2, we are just going to regroup. 8/5. Let's look at the fraction part of the problem, and we're going to say let's regroup that. 5 goes into 8 one full time with 3/5 left over. And now, if that equals 1 and 3/5, I'm just going to add the 5 back to it to get 6 and 3/5. Same thing for number 2. I'm going to write 14/3 over here and say I'm going to regroup that. 3 goes into 14 four times with 2/3 left over. I'm going to add that back to the 5 to get 9 and 2/3. Okay? All right, number 3. The first thing we want to do is line these problems up vertically. And when I line them up vertically, it helps because now I can show my work over on the right. And I'm going to say I'm going to multiply by something to get an equivalent fraction. So after we line them up vertically, our next step is to find a common denominator. And the common denominator is 20. So I say, all right, well, how do I get there? 5 times 4 is 20, and 4 times 5 is 20. And after I realize that, I multiply the numerator by the same thing because I really want to multiply by 1 to get itself. It's just going to look different, right? So 3/4, okay, I'm going to multiply 3 times 4 is 12. 3/5 is equivalent to 12/20. Just as I'm going to multiply 1/4 by 5/5, and 1/4 is equivalent to 5/20. They're the same thing, right? But now I can add them since they're out of the same denominator. And I get 17/20. All right, so let's do this one the same way. 2/5 plus 3/8. I'm going to multiply by something to get something. I'm going to multiply by something to get something. All right, and my common denominator here is 40. So 5 times 8 is 40, so I'm going to multiply by 8/8. And 8 times 5 is 40, so I'm going to multiply by 5/5. So 16/40 plus 15/40 equals 31/40. Okay, and if I ran out of room, 31/40. Okay, next set. This is a tricky question. 5 1/6 minus 3 3/4. My common denominator is, let's say you had trouble finding it. You could do the slide with 6 and 4 and say, what goes into 6 and 4? 2 does, 3 and 2 times, and when you multiply along that L, you get 12. So I'm going to use 12. You could have used 24, you could have used 36. There's an infinite amount of numbers you could have chose, but 12 is the least common denominator, which will give you the least amount of work to do. All right, so here's the problem. I got my equivalent fractions, and I can't take 9 from 4. So this is where I say I'm going to borrow 1, and I'm going to put the 1. And now I'm going to make this improper. All right, so I borrowed 1, put the 1, and I have to make it improper. 12 times 1 is 12, plus 4 is 16/12. So now I can do it. I can take 9 from 16, right? I just had to borrow some. So 9 from 16 is 7/12, and 4 minus 3 is 1. So you end up getting 1 and 7/12. All right, this guy, I know the opposite of a negative is a positive. So this is 1/5 plus 5/3 times what equals what times what equals what. And my common denominator is 15. I'm going to multiply this by 3/3. And I'm going to multiply this by 5/5 to get my equivalent fractions. And I wind up getting 28 over 15. And I can regroup that. 15 goes into 28 one time, right, with 13/15 left over. So 1 and 13/15. Here we go. 1 and 4/5 plus 2 and 3/4. And if I go too fast at home, you can definitely pause it and check it out, okay, or rewatch it. So here we go. I need to find a common denominator out of 5 and 4, which is 20. 5 times 4 is 20, so I'm going to multiply by 4/4. And 4 times 5 is 20, so I'm going to multiply by 5/5. All right, 16 for my numerator over here, 15 for my numerator over here. It's an addition problem, so I'm going to add, and I get 31/20. And I'm going to regroup that. 20 goes into 31 one time with 11/20 left over. Don't forget about your whole numbers. 2 plus 1 is 3. So now we add these two things together to get my final answer of 4 and 11/20. 4 and 11/20. All right, this guy, 1/6 plus 5/8 times something equals something times something equals something. That's something. Well, 6 and 8. I'm going to count by 8s. 8, 16, 24. 24 is my least common denominator. All right, so I'm going to multiply this by 4/4, multiply this by 33rds, and I get 4 and 15. And when I add those things together, I get 19/24. If you got 38/48, that is equivalent. You just have to make sure that you simplify it all the way down. And we've got 2 problems left. You can do this problem 2 different ways. 5 minus 3/5. First way to do it is say, I can't take 3/5 from nothing, right? There has to be something here. So I'm going to borrow 1, and I'm going to put the 1. But my 1 has to have a denominator of 5. So I'm going to cross that out again and say, what's equal to 5? Or sorry, what's equal to 1 that has a denominator of 5? Okay, and it's 5/5. That equals 1. Now I can do it. 5/5 minus 3/5 is 2/5, and this is 4. So I get 4 and 2/5. Okay, another way to do it is to say, how many more fifths do I need? How many more fifths do I need to get to a whole? Okay, ignore that. 3/5 plus how many fifths would give me a whole? It would be 2/5, right? That'd get me to the whole number 1. And then if I was counting up from 1 to 5, that would be 2, 3, 4, 5. That would be 4 whole numbers. So it would be 4 and 2/5. You could count up and do it that way. All right, this guy, the tricky problem. When I subtract, the bigger number has to go on top, or what I should say, whatever I have more of. I have more negatives. So 8 goes on top. And remember that saying, I have more negatives, because that's going to come in handy at the end. So 8 minus 5 and 1/6. I'm going to borrow 1. I'm going to put the 1. But it has to have a denominator of 6. So that's going to be 6/6. 6/6 minus 1/6 is 5/6. And 7 minus 5 is 2. And this is where people are going to mess up. You have more negatives than positives. So your answer is -2 and 5/6. Okay, so hopefully that helped, guys, and we're going to get better at this the more we practice. Good job today.